Welcome back to the lands between of Elden Ring. How the game's going to be played. Picked up the Tarnish's Wizened Finger. Some new stuff, new features that the game added over time. Now we begin. And this is the journey to Platinum. But we got one last playthrough to go through, and I have to get the Lord of the Frenzied Flame ending in order to achieve that. So with the Age of Stars and the Elden Lord trophies already gotten, they just need one more. And this is going to run us through the entirety of the game. So prepare for about a 200 plus long hour journey. This is why I need to keep this on live, because I don't want to start and stop playthroughs just for 1 hour each, because this game is already big enough. So I'll just keep going until I'm tired. As mentioned previously, the little messages here at the bottom just kind of drop hints. They troll. They're helpful. It's worth your time to every now and again to check a few of them, but since I know the game in and out, there's not really much that they're going to tell me that I don't know already. Some of them might just be little refreshers and memory buffs. Now, From Software loves to do these kinds of things where they're going to drop us in an immediate boss fight. It's winnable, but it's very hard to do so. You'll have to be kind of perfect at doing it, because we have like base starting gear and not the greatest stats in the world to kind of deal with this thing. So it's supposed to look hopeless, and then either way, though, if you lose or beat it, you'll continue on to the next area of the game.
Don't worry, Torrent. Fortune is on her side. We found her here after all. One of her kind is sure to seek the Elden Ring. Even if it does violate the Golden Order.
All right, so like I said, with the fighting of that enemy, win or lose, it doesn't matter. If you win, you get like pretty cool set of weapons and I think a shield or something like that. If not, just a pair of weapons for sure. But like it's kind of difficult to beat, so like I said, you have to really know what you're doing there, and just kind of get perfect at the fight. But nothing wrong with it. You lose, you come down here either way. So the Cave of Knowledge, jump down the hole ahead, and you will find the Cave of Knowledge. There, you can learn about the game controls and basic actions, as well as other tips that may be helpful during your adventures in the lands between. And if you don't want to take the tutorial tunnel, all you got to do is go straight up there and proceed through the double doors. The white phantom dudes that are running around, those are other players that are currently like in other worlds and stuff like that. So just players around the entire world are playing the game right now. Talked about what these messages are and what the bloodstains are. There's going to be a lot of deals like this in this world where you're going to see a lot of NPC type characters. All we want to do is talk to them and exhaust all their dialogue over time. Brave Tarnish, take the plunge of learning and remembrance. Recall the arts of war and your warrior's blood. And that's it. So most of the NPCs, like good 90% of them, will have actual voice acting and stuff like that. And then there will be some of them where we actually have to read. Our character, though, is a silent protagonist, so they will never speak other than just screams of death, and that's about it. The Sites of Grace. Resting at a Site of Grace will restore your HP, FP, and cleanse any status ailments. It will also refill your Sacred Flask. However, most of the enemies you defeated will be revived. You can find Sites of Grace by going where light converges. These explanations are required in the form of info items and can be accessed from the inventory at any time. Okay? So what the game is stating is that in our inventory, if you just kind of look, we saw this one and then we see this one. So if you need to go to the About section, all you got to do is just kind of go to Info tab right over here. Say you drop the game for a couple months, years, whatever, and then this will teach you all about the stuff that you probably forgot. But Sites of Grace, those little yellow icon things on the little hill, are like the bonfires, the lamps, the Buddha statues, all that kind of stuff. It's the same deal, just in Elden Ring. That's what they are called, and this is what they look like. So you will rest at them, and then once we rest at them, there will be a bunch of stuff you can do at a Site of Grace. So when you choose to rest at a Site of Grace, you must also know that every time you do this, you will reset every single enemy minus boss encounters in a specific zone or any specific zone. So if there's a farmable item or farmable enemy that you want to have continuously coming back, just go find the nearest Site of Grace, or you can just simply fast travel and they will be back. Inside of the menu, we can pass the time. You can wait until morning, noon, or nightfall. Noon really has nothing to do majorly with the game unless you just kind of want the noon aesthetic. But morning and nightfall being probably the most important aspect of the game because there are nighttime bosses in the open world. And again, this is why we are kind of doing this playthrough, because a lot of those enemies were not featured in that first series I did, because we only exploration. Your flask. So we are going back to flask. So no more blood vials or, the little healing gourds or anything like that, which kind of act the same way. We can add charges, basically meaning that we can add more flask use, increase the amount replenished. We'll have to get different items for these two things. Allocating the flask. You can go between having, all of that one or just 3 of those and that. Just kind of play around with the build that way you want. There's no right or wrong answer here. Memorizing your spells with the memorized spells menu, you can memorize sorceries and incantations. You must have a staff equipped to cast sorceries or a sacred seal equipped to cast incantations. Casting sorceries and incantations consumes FP. Your memory slots determine the number of sorceries and incantations you memorize. You can increase your memory slots by obtaining a memory stone. So there you go. So to get more of these, we need to get a memory stone. You have chests. With this menu, you can place items that you're carrying into the chest for storage or take stored items out of the chest. If you're already carrying the maximum number of items, when you pick up a new item, it will be stored in the chest automatically. So a nice little quality of life feature there where you don't have to do that by yourself. So if your inventory starts to get overwhelmed, and it will in this game, just start putting stuff away that you know you're probably never going to use just so it looks a lot cleaner. Most of the time, people don't like to do that, and they just go. Something that I noticed that I did, though, is I don't believe I chose a starting gift. And that's kind of a problem. So rushing through it all. With the messages menu, you can write messages. Players of the worlds can read at the spot anytime you left them. So very nice feature about playing multiplayer. As you can see, I've discovered some. The ones that have like these golden sparks, they've been appraised a bunch of different times. So, you know, it's pretty cool to see one of your messages probably be in the 6,000 range like that. Generally, you get, you know, people look at your messages and they can either say it was pretty bad or it was really good. So if we read this one, it says, good luck, no comfort ahead. And then you can add gestures and stuff like that. You can say that this message was poor or good. It doesn't matter how you appraise it. They'll still get credit for the appraisal. And if you leave a message in the world and somebody appraises it during your actual gameplay, then, like it said, your HP will actually replenish, which is pretty nifty and can come in handy in certain situations, like you run out of flask in a boss fight and you just kind of get like a Sekiro unseen aid type of thing. So that's pretty cool. But we're actually going to kind of redo this part because we should not have skipped the starting gift for sure. Just go ahead and reset that one. And in a video prior to this, it's not out yet because I have to do the rendering process and then upload it. I already showed the intro and everything, so we're not going to show that. I explained all of this stuff already, so we're just going to go ahead and select our Vagabond. Then we want to get this going. And then it was the keepsake. So the keepsake is something that I kind of went over and didn't say nothing about it because I went straight for the appearance. So I actually want to load my favorite here. We got to alter this stuff real quick. I don't want to go in with any blemishes or nothing like that. Stay with that. I did pick a little bit of a red hair color. Kind of a Immortal Phoenix Rising look with the hairstyle there. And then with the keepsake, so this is basically like your starting gift. You'll see in Dark Souls and stuff like that. You can choose any one of these items, or you just don't have to choose any at all. And you basically just get like a free item in the game. Honestly, a lot of people like to go for the golden seed. I would say that you don't really have to do that. These things are plenty, and there's actually like an over amount. So if you choose golden seed, yes, you'll get like an extra flask right out the gate. But like I said, they're pretty easy to find, and I think it's just a waste. So don't select this unless you really want an extra flask right away. Lands Between Rune, that's just going to net you, I think, over 2,000 or so runes. So okay start for probably the Wretch, but I wouldn't even consider that either because runes are aplenty. The Amber Medallion will find these things naturally through the game, so you don't need that. The Imp Ashes, you'll get those in the game. A Cracked Pot, you'll get plenty of those. Stone Sword Key, though, this is probably the best starting gift that I can recommend. The Bewitching Branch, it's a consumable item that you'll use on enemies, so it's probably not worth your time. Boiled Prawn is also another consumable item, definitely not worth your time. And then Shabriri's Row. The crazed likeness of a noble whose eyes have been gouged out attracts enemies' aggression. So if you want to do any kind of online multiplayer and you're trying to help someone out, this is probably an item you would use to keep an enemy from attacking the host often, or just taking all the pressure off of them so you can be the one, depending on your skill level, to defeat everything. So with that, I would say that the Stone Sword Key and the Golden Seed are probably two of the best items to pick from this lot. And you would want to pick the Stone Sword Key because these things are actually pretty hard to come by early in the game. And then now, it should be good.
The fallen leaves.
Okay, so once again, running through all this stuff. Just had to do a soft reset there before we got deep without the starting gift. Alright, with the multiplayer menu, you can use various multiplayer items. If you set a group password, you'll be more likely to see messages, summon signs, bloodstains, phantoms, and so on from other using the same password. If you set a multiplayer password, you'll only be matched with other players using the same password for the most multiplayer features. However, multiplayer passwords do not apply to invasion multiplayer, meaning that if you are invading, you have free range to invade whatever you want. You cannot prevent anyone from doing that. Okay. Then once again, down here, so now we're just back. All right, so we picked up new items here. So the Flask of Crimson Tears. This is going to be the main way to heal in the game. Your HP. So a Sacred Flask modeled after a golden holy chalice that was once graced by the Tear of Blessing. Filled with Crimson Tears, this flask restores HP with use. Rest at a site of grace to replenish it. The one washed up on the gravesite was sure to die until this flask offered its gift of rejuvenation to seek the Elden Ring. And then the Cerulean Tears is the opposite. It does your blue bar, so your FP. So the same kind of thing. So just kind of giving us a little lore about the one who washed up. That was us. Do the little Cave of Knowledge, and now it's in our inventory permanently. Or at least it always should be. You can set those anywhere you want. If you do not want these in your quick items, then you can put them in your pouch area right here. So these pouches on this side, so the way you activate this is just by hitting the options button on PlayStation or the start button on Xbox. And then you'll see like it has directional pads on it. So what you would do is that you would actually hold down triangle to open up your pouch and then kind of select whatever you're going to use in the pouch. Another way is that you get 2 free pouches right here. So if you're pretty quick about it, you can kind of just boom right there and use it like that. I think that's kind of slow, especially with the way some battles go, so you don't want to do it like that. I would just have them attached to your quick items, so all you have to do is press square and use anything that's attached in the utility belt down here. You'll be able to set up 10 quick items, and these 2 primarily, along with another type of flask that we'll see later, is what you'll pretty much have here full time. Okay, just getting started. Good luck. Got it. Then once more about the grace menu and stuff like that. So we'll just go ahead and go back to it. And then same stuff applied there. So now we're going to actually go ahead and go on with the tutorial. So R3, clicking down on R3 or the right stick is going to create this little white dot. This is how we lock onto enemies, just like every Souls game, and pretty much almost a lot of action RPGs nowadays use this feature. So this should feel right at home for those who are pretty good with this stuff. And then in Elden Ring specifically, there is a kind of a crouch button that you can use to kind of get up on enemies silently. But the old tried and true method of just walking up behind them also still works. But if you do like a full-on sprint, then a lot of the enemies in the world will kind of catch attention. Then R1 and R2 are your regular attack buttons here. Guarding, use an armament in your left hand or both hands to guard against incoming attacks. Guarding is especially effective when done with a shield. Guarding consumes stamina. If your stamina runs out, your stance will be broken. Press L1 to guard. Dodging. You can avoid enemy attacks with a dodge roll or backstep. Both of these actions consume stamina. So left stick and circle to dodge in any direction. So you can omni roll in this game. And then backstepping is just a simple pressing circle while you're standing still. Now, to explain the shield part of what they were saying, so right now we have what's called a medium shield. This is the heater shield. So if we were to take a look on its little stats down here, the attack power isn't going to really matter for a shield unless you're using the shield as a weapon, which you can. If you just kind of put it like that. Not recommended to do that, but you know, there's crazier playthroughs. And then you'll see the attribute scaling. Scaling on a shield has nothing to do with the shield's like power or anything like that, so don't even worry about it. Attributes required, though, that is definitely something you do need to take a look at because some shields will require different stats in order to fully equip it and use it, outright. The guarded damage negation, however, is the most important thing to look at when you're looking at a shield, and this will show you the damage negation from the shield. So like I said, this is going to be like pretty much a full night playthrough. The physical resistance on this thing is 100, so anytime you have a physical attack coming to hit you, you are going to block 100% of that damage no matter what enemy is doing it. Now, some attacks, like enemies will be able to use fire swords and lightning swords and stuff like that. That damage is totally calculated on another aspect. So if you look down, you see magic, fire, lightning, holy, and guard boost. So the 4 elements you see there, that's how much negation you'll get out of this shield if an enemy attacks you with it. So the worst one by far is lightning. So you're only going to get a 27% reduction in lightning. Meaning that anyone who is using lightning against you is going to break through your shield pretty quickly. So you'll be taking, well over 77% of the damage or whatever it is. And then, or 73% of the damage. Guard boost, on the other hand, is a really neat feature they added in Elden Ring, where depending on how much, stamina you have, it's a stamina to block ratio. So while you block and you just kind of sit there and take the hits, you do lose stamina for that, and while you're guarding, your stamina bar will go back up in a slower pace. So you have to kind of find a good balance of letting your guard down so your stamina can recover faster, but also maintaining your defense. And the name of the game is you're out of stamina, you're going to get hit for a chunk of damage. So like it was saying, you're going to lose your stance. Basically, when you lose your stance, there will be a pretty loud sound indicating that you're in danger, and then an enemy will usually follow up with a pretty good attack. You'll take increased damage because you just have no stamina left and you're unguarded. And the same goes for these guys. So you saw with this one, I was blocking, and his sword bounced off of my shield, which caused him to kind of recoil backwards. That is setting him up where I broke his poise, and he'll take increased damage from that too. A lot of things to learn about how to play this. We got a soldier up there. They're teaching us about how to run, so you hold circle down and run in a direction in order to sprint. Materials. So this is a very new feature in Souls games. In every corner of the lands between, you will find fruits, flowers, mushrooms, and butterflies, and various other useful materials. These materials can be used for item crafting. Yes, they can. So we want to get out of danger real quick. Okay. First intro area. As you can see there, there is no pause in these games, so that when that soldier picked up on me and I was in the menu, anything in the world can hurt you. So you kind of want to be aware of where you're kind of sitting at. Most of the time you want to just do things at grace or at really important places that you're not going to get attacked or invaded. Wielding armaments. Each hand can be equipped with up to 3 armaments, allowing you to toggle between them. Armaments can also be two-handed, making attacks more difficult to repel with shields and boosting effective strength by 50%. So you get a 50% increase in your strength, only in strength, if you dual hand a weapon. And that is very important to know, because that increase can be the difference if you can, two-hand basically a claymore or something like that, right away with poor stats versus the stats that you actually need. And I'll explain after I defeat this guy. So shielded enemies, there's no way to kick their shields anymore like you used to be able to. You have to actually use a skill to do that. We want this guy to kind of get behind him a little bit or bait out an attack, but that's not really what he does, because they're trying to tell you to pretty much do this. Every now and again he'll kind of poke at you, so you want to be careful, but when you're dual handing your weapon like this, you're actually doing like a power swing, and it increases your strength, like it said. So my strength currently right now is 14, like base wise, and by 50% increase, they mean like a 1.5 increase. So all you really do is you kind of just pull out a calculator, and then you'll put your stat that you have right now, like without any upgrades, and then multiply that by 1.5. And in a technical aspect, I have 21. So I have 21 strength when I dual hand my sword like this. And let's just say that this sword required 21 strength. So if I was sitting here at, 14 strength, but the weapon required 21 strength to wield, all you have to do is just kind of put it in two hands like this. You'll be without a shield though. Weapons do have like their own kind of damage negation. Obviously not better than a shield, but it is still there. But when you look at the longsword, you'll see the attack power physical is 110 plus 22. And then you got your guarded damage negation, which is 45 resistance to physical and 30 across the board for all the elements. And then we have a 30% guard boost when it comes to the sword itself. So obviously not that great of a choice, but you can use weapons to block damage if you need to. So you don't have to take all of it. Now, in regards to the weapon scaling, so right now you'll see that I have a D on strength and dex, and then 3 dashes on int, arc, and faith. Meaning that this weapon has no attribute scaling when it comes to intelligence, faith, or arcane, but it does scale with strength and dex. So the more we increase this weapon's power by using smithing stones, all the way up to plus 25, is how far you can go with regular weapons, plus 10 for special weapons and a different type of stone. That attribute scaling will change depending on what you've done to the weapon. So if we keep it like we are at a quality build, swords generally go up to about a B ranking for most of them. Straight swords, I should say, and then all different weapons have like their own scaling. So like curved swords are probably going to scale better with dexterity. So that could see, or dexterity. And you could probably see like an A or B or even an S in some curved swords, but like a D or E in strength, because that's not the kind of weapon they are. And then for like claymores or great swords and stuff like that, you're going to see probably a huge increase in strength. So it can probably scale like S, A, or B, and then leave dex or whatever else at D and E. And then all the letters are just kind of indications about how much like of your stats that you have on the right side will contribute to damage based off of the scaling. So that number, that plus 22 is what they're pulling from strength and dex combined and adding it from my 14 strength and my 13 dexterity and putting those points into physical damage. So think of it no more than just bonus damage, basically, and there is like a percentage about how they do that. So ranking is from E, or from S to E, S being the best, and then E being the worst. So generally you want to get weapons up to S, it'll just give it more power over time, but that will be handled once we actually start upgrading. Right here is just telling us how to change targets. You just flick the right stick. So when we get a broken enemy like that, you see that he takes 82, and he took 68 and 82. So that's what I mean by breaking their stance. So the 68 is like the basic attack when it swings, and then the 82 was because we stance broken them for a little bit. Now, if they get into a point where they kneel on the ground or you hear like a sound or something, that is going to be like a riposte position. So you just take them and do like a critical stab. It does a bunch of different damage, so definitely want to get good at doing that. Same thing could be done to you too, though, so you do want to watch that stamina bar for sure. Guard, then that's what guard boost does. So going back to guard boost, when you attack something, so we'll see if we can get this guy to pull out a sword. So when he comes over and attacks me with a sword, if he does, and he bounces like that, you're able to push R2 immediately, and you'll do a, I can't think of the name right now. Well, they'll show a tutorial. I can't remember the name of it. I didn't really use it a lot my first couple playthroughs. Armaments have special abilities called skills. Skills are highly varied and range from powerful attacks to temporary effects. Using skills consume FP, and they do. So like I said, with the sword, because we have parry on the shield, we won't be able to utilize the straight sword square off ability. And see, that was half a parry, so I messed that one up. And then that sound that you heard there, that means that you got a riposte position ready to go. And you just kind of walk up on the enemy, hit R1, and then they'll do that little stabbing animation. Now we'll use this, the crouching. Crouch to make it harder for your enemies to discover you, especially effective in tall grass. Attacking an enemy that hasn't noticed you will cause more damage than usual. So yes, bunch of different damage factors when you're doing this game. Crouching will be very useful though for a lot of different things. Even if you aren't a sneak character, I wouldn't worry about it. So we're going to dual hand our weapon so we can use square off. And if you look down there where you see the 4 different icons here, if you look just above it, you'll see like a sword and some kind of thing going down on it. And it'll say what skill you have currently equipped for your L2 button. So right now it's parry, what I just did to that enemy. And then if I put this over here, I will have square off. Now, there is going to be a way to take off parry so you can still have a shield and use your special ability. We just have to earn the right to do it. But for now, you have to kind of dual hand whatever weapon you're using in order to use that, or you just take off your shield completely. So we'll walk up on him. And then with square off, all you do is kind of hold down the L2. And then if you push an L1 or R1 or L or R2 attack, then you're going to do a special kind of attack for it. And as you saw there, it used up a bit of my FP. And the game will generally tell you in this menu right here how much FP something costs. So if we look at the square off over there, we'll just come down to it. And then we see FP cost. So right now it says 6.8. So what the 2 numbers there are saying is that if we are in square off mode and we put R1, then it's going to use 6 FP for the light version of the square off attack. And then if we use the R2, it's going to use 8 FP for the heavier version of the attack. Weight is obviously important. We talked about that already. And you see it says there, R1 near a back-turned enemy for a critical hit. That's exactly what you do. And use that to your advantage as much as you can. Some attacks may break an enemy stance, giving you a chance to perform a critical hit. Charge attacks and jump attacks make it particularly easy to break an enemy stance. Hold R2 for your charge, and then R2 while jumping to do a jump attack. So this is what I was saying about stance breaking. You really want to get used to doing this kind of stuff. The heavier your weapon is, like it will do even more poise breaking against different types of foes that will fight in the game. Regular dudes like this will be nothing, but I'm talking like bigger bears and bigger monsters will take a while to break their poise. But the more pressure you keep on an enemy just from regular R1 spam, or if you can get good at holding R2 for the charge attacks or jumping attacks, you'll get it even quicker. So this guy is purposely stronger, so we can try it. And that is what stance breaking is. The Stakes of America. Upon dying, you will be revived at the last site of grace that you visited. However, if there's a Stake of America near where you died, you can choose to be revived there instead. So this is a very, very nice function. Very easy for like new Souls players to get into. Whereas like some bosses, you would have to take, 10, 15 minutes fighting through shit again and getting back over to the boss door or whatever it was, versus something like this. And these are plenty. They're not everywhere in the game, but they are plenty. It's just a more convenient way to kind of like, okay, I messed up, but instead of running through the entire cave like the old games would have us do, all you have to do is just get revived at the Stake of America and then walk through that door if you can't beat the boss. A very, very useful thing. And you'll know when you have a stake if you see it right there underneath my stamina bar. It disappears, meaning that I am not in the zone of the thing. So if I was to actually die here, I would go all the way back to the last site of grace that I visited. But when she appears just like that, that means that I have a Stake of America activated. And if I die at any point that that icon is served, then I will go straight back over here and then continue wherever I need it to go. So the mist, or the boss fog, however you want to call it, this is usually boss rooms. So there's no secret other than that. You'll always just kind of run into a boss. Bosses will have giant HP bars like that, so you know it's an important enemy. This is a regular soldier though, so this is, very winnable battle. You can perform a counterattack immediately after blocking an enemy attack. Guard counters, that's what it's called. Guard counters make it an easy way to break enemy stance. Yes, it does. R2 immediately after blocking an attack, guard counter. So, depending on your shield, you can get some amazing guard counter abilities. Guard counter was just introduced to this game alone, and I made a lot of use of it in my last run with the halberd guy. So basically, the guard boost will determine how much stamina you lose per each attack that you take, but also really helps you out with how much guard counter you can do. And that's after they bounce off of you, or really after any regular attack, you just push R2, and then you'll do a special attack that in most cases will generally break an enemy stance in 1 or 2 guard counters. So you really, really want to make use of this if you're a melee build, because this thing is, in my opinion, I think it's overpowered, but it's really good. And it's very useful for when you're getting swarmed and overwhelmed by enemies and stuff like that, so. Then with that, your achievements, I don't think so, because I keep finding new ones and never had to worry about it. But gestures are, they've been around. You already know what these are. You just kind of use them to greet, whatever, do some funny animations. Hey! I guess the hey is part of the the deal there. You point. Yeah, it's a general way for you to talk to other players when you don't have like your mic on and you don't want to talk to nobody, just so they can kind of understand what you're probably doing. Don't worry about that item up there. We will come back to this a lot later in the game. Then we want to go ahead and go through the doors. Then up the stairs. Here we go. So if you are confused about a site of grace that you may or may not have visited, there's two ways that you can check. If you have it on your map, that means that you have touched it or rested at it before. So you do not need to rest at a site of grace in order to put it on in your menu or anything. All you have to do is just touch the grace and move on if you don't want to reset the enemies. So the Cave of Knowledge, if we touch the site of grace, this will show us the Stranded Graveyard. So now we know that we have two sites of grace, and this will be an icon littered all over Elden Ring. You're going to see hundreds of these things. This wall right here, this is stuff that's blocked because you need to insert stone sword keys into these little imp heads. This one requires two. Now, we only got one, right, from being in there, and then we got another one for our starting gift. So a sword-shaped stone key breaks the seal on imp statues but remains embedded in the statues after use, meaning it can only be used once as an item. Think well before using one. So very useful piece of advice there, and it is very encouraged that you don't just use them wherever you want most of the time. Now, the name of the game is to explore, and I mean, you wouldn't be wrong if you used to here, but going down there is very difficult right now. That is something that you probably don't want to be taking on. Now, since we have a reduction in HP and FP, if you just simply rest at the site of grace, it'll replenish that stuff, or you can kind of just take the long way around and just use these. And then once you rest at a site of grace, you will see that they replenish. So those are always replenishable. Your stone sword keys, though, are limited. There will be enough stone sword keys, though, and there will be a plethora that are left over the game for you to open up every single one of the imp head statues, so don't stress over it too much. They are just very hard to come by in the early game. Cooperative multiplayer, use tarnished furl finger to write gold summon signs. Cooperative multiplayer will begin once you have been summoned by a player from another world. You will take on the role of an ally of furled finger, and your objective is to defeat the area boss. The compass at the top of the screen indicates the direction of the summoner, host of fingers. So a lot of fingers, you know what I mean? There's a lot of that kind of shit going on in this game. The finger severer and the tarnished furled finger. Now, I usually have a setup that I'm used to. I put the furled finger in a pouch. Actually, not that one. No, my bad. Get confused now with the other one. Not that one. I want that one. Okay. So we'll go ahead and read those since those are brand new items. Item for online play only. Can be used multiplayer menu. Use as a host of fingers to select a summoned player and send them back to their world. Use when you have been summoned to another player's world to return to your own world. This phantom blade severs a link formed by a furled finger, but the maidens scorn those who abuse its use. So basically, don't be an ass. If you're gonna jump in someone's game, then help them. You know what I mean? Don't just kind of sit there and whatever, and then just cut yourself out of the game because, you know, that player really needed the help. And then you severing your finger to get out of their game, that's kind of a dick move. So just don't do that kind of stuff, you know? Like, you can just turn off multiplayer completely if you don't want to be a part of it. And there will be, like, you know, nothing really wrong about that other than you just won't see messages or anything. But honestly, just don't need players that do that kind of shit because it's insane. The Tarnish's Furled Finger creates a summon sign for cooperative multiplayer. Arrive as a cooperator with the objective of defeating the area boss of the world to which you were summoned. A finger of corpse wax, furled like a hook. It is a relic of those who came before, left to help those who would come after. And basically what I found out about the Furled Finger is while we play games like this, the controls are very strange for most people. Like, they don't really like the way that the run button is set up, kind of where it's at. But if you take a look at how you kind of look around with your right thumb, you move with your left thumb, obviously. And then the way that you push, you're not going to put your thumb on the circle because then you don't have a way to look. So you'll have to use your thumb to look, and then you curl up your finger on the circle to kind of run around like this. So it was an interesting little tidbit that I found out. I was like, wow, my finger really does look like that. So they know exactly how we play these games and how we are expected to. So the furled finger thing was really cool. Had no idea what that was until somebody explained it. So I was like, that's pretty dope. Then elevators are all over this game. There's going to be elevator puzzles, elevator traps. You'll see. Yeah, we'll get to those when we get to those. But the general gist and rule of elevators is if you're going up against the boss arena, just send them back down, because it'll just make the time shorter for when you get back, so you don't have to pull the lever, wait for it or whatever. Just send these back down, and then you just go right. If you die, you come back up, use the elevator, and just keep doing it over and over again. Old Dark Souls 1 trick. And then welcome to Limgrave. So, big world. We are in for a treat. Elden Ring's open world is very dangerous, and sometimes very ominous, and you do not know what the hell you're doing or where you're going. The only point of where the game kind of directs you at directions are through the sites of grace, and only specific ones at that. So everything in the world can be attacked. Everything in the world gives you items. It's worth your time to figure that stuff out as you play. There will be NPCs just like we see over there. We don't know if they're hostile or, or what. General rule is, though, if they're not charging at you and they don't have a red name underneath or on top of their head, then they're probably your friend. For now. But go ahead and touch every piece of grace that you find. You're always going to be transporting back to places. The guidance of grace. Grace exists to guide the tarnished and lead them along the proper path. Even now, some sites of grace retain that power. Their golden rays will guide you along your way. So just like I was saying, certain graces will actually point you, like this, in a direction that you should be going in order to reach more and more points to the story and to ultimately get to the ending. Use your map to check your current positions. Okay, so we know what maps are. If you played video games before, you've seen them, you know them. Elden Ring's map is phenomenal, so detailed. Sometimes can be a little confusing about like height ranges and stuff like that, but I think only for very specific sections. But for the most part, the map is very detailed and always worth your attention, so you can start setting up your routes and figuring out where you need to go, or put important markers down to revisit areas that you need to go to. Every NPC that you run into a Soulsborne game, you always exhaust the dialogue. And so by that I mean we talk to them, and then once they get to a point where they start repeating dialogue, that means that you've completed like their dialogue boxes, and then just move on.
Oh yes, tarnished are we? Come to the lands between for the Elden Ring? Of course you have. No shame in it. Unfortunately for you, however, you are maidenless. Without guidance, without the strength of runes, and without an invitation to the Round Table Hold, you are fated it seems, to die in obscurity. Luckily for you, however, there is one shining ray of hope for even the maidenless. Me, Vare. Take care to listen. Are you familiar with grace? The golden light that gives life to you tarnished. You may also behold its golden rays, pointing in a particular direction at times. That is the guidance of grace, a path that a tarnished must travel. Indeed, grace's guidance holds the answers. It will lead you tarnished to the path you are meant to follow, even if it leads you to your grave. Grace's guidance will reveal the path forward, most certainly, to Castle Stormvale, over on the cliff, the home of the decrepit demigod. You seek the Elden Ring, maidenless as you are. It's time you set off to Castle Storm if you seek the...
Alright, so this guy is making a big deal about us being maidenless. It's a very big deal for the Tarnished as well, because, like he said, without a maiden, we cannot turn runes into strength, and we are without guidance, basically, on how to become an Elden Lord. So, good lore lesson there. Kind of a dick move from him for saying something like that. But he is pointing out the fact of our first major quest line that we need to get accomplished. We need to get all the way up to that cliff and enter Castle Stormvale. So very, very neat. Easily missable item here for most of the game, so you kind of just want to walk up to these things right here. These are called summoning pools. In each area, you may find effigies of martyrs. These effigies are summoning pools. You'll find it easy to summon other players at these locations as co-op and hostile summoning signs created by small effigies gathered at summoning pools. Okay. This is a small golden effigy. Send a cooperative summon sign to several summoning pools. In cooperative multiplayer, your objectives will be to defeat the area boss of the world to which you were summoned. So, this is just an easier way to get summoned, basically. This is the item that I put in my left pouch. And you need to activate these summoning pools as well, so just make sure that you do this. You'll see the message down there at the bottom saying that it's functional. And then once you do that, we'll have our first summoning pool. So these are littered all over the game. Like they're in the dungeons, they are outside in caves, they are in random ass places that I'm still finding to this day. You just really want to keep your eyes out for this thing, because this is right here is where you can summon help or be summoned to help. So the more of the world you explore and the more of Elden Ring you get, the more areas you can actually cover to kind of help people out and stuff like that. So it's really neat. And updates and patches over time have actually made this effigy a lot better. So you can send your summon sign out for nearby zones only, so the whole of Limgrave or both near and far. So let's just say that I went basically to like the middle or, you know, the third world of the game, and I put this summon sign down and I get transported all the way back here to go fight that dude on the horse. So I think it's beneficial for both near and far, because you never know where people are at that need help. So that's pretty cool. Or you can just stay in the zone you're in. Just up to you, your situation, whatever you want to do. Now, that enemy over there, he looks pretty frightening, right? It's got a big halberd with giant shield and a giant horse. Probably want to avoid that, but if you're brave enough, go ahead and take him on. There is fall death and fall damage to a certain degree, but little drops like that won't do anything to you. The wildlife can be killed for material. Make sure you're always doing this. Thin, hard beast bones found by hunting beasts, commonly used to make disposable weapons. There you go. So you need these to craft a bunch of different shit. Rune fragments, stone fragment found near places where ruins have fallen from the sky. Can be used for crafting or simply for throwing at enemies. These shards of stone are believed to have once been a part of a temple in the sky. So very, very cool, right? Cool little lore there. It's like, what? Like, what? You're going to see a lot of these scattered ruins throughout the game. You know, there's a whole story about a war that happened beforehand. And we're just kind of in the cleanup zone, you know? At times the game will dip like that in frames, so just, you know. But for the most part, Elden Ring is pretty clean of a game. General rule is as soon as you walk up on any grace, you probably want to grab it. Because if anything goes wrong, at least you know you're back where you want to be at and not having to run, like, multiple, you know, yards or whatever to get to where you needed to get to. This is the fast travel system tutorial. Through your map, you can instantly travel to any of the sites of grace that you discovered. However, there are some dungeon areas where you cannot. So we already read that before. So you see that we're starting to open up a lot now. And then just kind of be aware of this guy. Sometimes it'll just kind of flash out. So that is our first instance of a rune. Grace that dwells within the inhabitants of the lands between and lingering trace of gold. Runes are nourishment for the development of any tarnish provided by Finger Maiden can be found. Yep. And then pretty much you use these, you'll see it says use to gain 400 runes. So basically your souls, you know, your blood dues and all that stuff. You'll collect millions of those things over the course of the game. So feel free to use them whenever you need to purchase items or if you need them for like a little bit of help to level up. Strengthening armaments at the smithing table. You can spend runes and smithing stones to strengthen your armaments. Somewhere in the lands between, you may meet a blacksmith who can make your armaments even stronger. So a big hint right there. So these smithing stones are what you use to upgrade your regular weapons. And you'll see that it says the item effect is to reinforce armaments up to +3. Stone used to smith a variety of armaments, a shard found in plenty, strengthens armaments up to +3. Smithing stone is found throughout the lands between, and mining galleries built to excavate it when it can be found everywhere. Okay. So we are going to get multiple different types of smithing stones, and they are all worth gathering because you're going to need them to upgrade your weapons throughout the course of the game. This smithing table, like it's saying right here, can only upgrade our stuff to +3. So we are very limited at how far we can actually take a weapon right now until we get to a certain point in the game. So with the smithing, you are going to need runes, and you're going to need the right amount of smithing stones in order to get it up to a plus whatever you're trying to go for. Somewhere in the lands between, you meet a blacksmith who can make it look. So it just said that. So generally what this is you need 12 of a certain type of smithing stone in order to get it to its next level. So for smithing stone bracket 1, we need 12 of those in order to get to a +3. But you do it in increments. So right now all it's requiring to get to +1 is 2. And in the parentheses is how many we own, which is just the 1. To get it to a +2, you're going to need 4, and then to get it to a +3, we need 6. So a total of 12 stones for each upgrade is required. And then once we see smithing stone bracket 2, it's going to be the same deal. You'll need 12 stones in order to get it to +6, and so on and so forth. And then you can see, like, with the upgrading, it's already kind of telling us that if we put it to a +1, this is what we get from it. So we will get 116 base damage along with plus 17. So pretty much, added damage for upgrading your weapon. And we see that the strength scaling will go from D to D. So it's letting you know that this weapon is probably a strength weapon and it's going to scale, better over time, meaning that this thing probably will go up to a B or an A as long as we keep it a regular longsword. So these dudes, this one, the only one that looks like this, but these guys are the merchants. The merchants are found all throughout the entire game. It's important to note where they're at. I think a future update they did actually adds them to the map, so now we actually know where everybody's at. But beforehand, we used to put down little signs like this. You can add 100. Generally, it's kind of like if you want to get a piece of paper, write down what your legend is. Like for swords, I never use this one. Skull icons I use for boss enemy placement. So like if I find a night boss and they're just really hard to beat, I'll just put an icon down there telling me that there's something there. A person icon is what I use to kind of like indicate NPCs. Animals, never really done anything with that. The plant I use for items that are farmable in the open world. So all you got to do is rest at a site of grace, and then you can just kind of go back to the area and pick them up. So in this instance, it would be like a future item we can get is called a smoldering butterfly, and there's like zones of those things kind of chilling around with some slugs. So I'll just put these things down to indicate like, oh, there's a craftable material there. So if I ever need it, I just run back, grab as many as I need, and be done with it. The diamond one I usually use for these walking stone things. We'll come across those a lot later in the game. Treasure chest, for treasure chest, this flag thing I use for general waypoints. So like if I need to go somewhere, I mark these things down so that I know, because you only get a certain amount of pins before you don't get any more. Markers for the tree, I never use that, and I don't use those either. But you can pretty much just legend these out any way you want. Now, for the pin, all you got to do is press X in order to place the beacon, and you can set up to 5. Okay? Once you do 5, you'll start seeing that the other ones are starting to disappear. And generally, you want to use these to kind of like pick out, once we get like the map of the zone, then you'll see the detail of the map, and you'll see like ruins here and caves over here. You want to put these things down, and it kind of tells you where your interest should be going. So like if I look on the map icon here, I kind of follow the road and I see something sticking out. I'm just going to put something down there because it's something that I actually want to go check out, right? And then once you see it, you'll cross over it and it'll disappear on its own, indicating that you made it to the spot. So we'll go ahead and talk to this merchant.
You're tarnished. I can see it. And I can also see that you're not after my throat. Then why not purchase a little something? I am Kale, purveyor of fine goods. I am of a nomadic people, selling wares as I travel. The land has been tainted by madness since the shattering of the Elden Ring. It's only tarnished like yourself, who keep things from drying up entirely. Let's say you're a very welcome customer. You know, if you can spare the rooms, you should buy yourself a crafting kit. A crafting kit allows you to make basic items on your own. Essential, really, if you intend to survive out here for any duration. The kit costs a bundle, and I admit I do take my cut. But the important thing is that you survive. Every customer counts, after all. If you can spare the runes, you should buy yourself a crafting kit. A crafting kit allows you to make basic items on your own. Essential, really, if you intend to survive out here for any duration. The kit costs a bundle, and I admit I do take my cut. But the important thing is that you survive. You know, you should buy yourself a crafting kit. Essential. The kit costs about the important...
Okay, and then with that, now we can go ahead and look through the shop menu. So really nothing I need to explain here. It's a shop. We've seen them millions of times. He is suggesting that we use our runes to buy a crafting kit. And we will, because this thing is really good. They'll give us a tutorial about what a crafting kit does. Some important stuff that you might want for now is probably a torch to see in the dark areas of the game. None of this other stuff for now. You do want to pick up every single one of these cookbooks, though, as we see them. So you kind of want to plan your funds as you go. Runes will be used for buying gear like this and leveling up. So you could tell runes are very, very needed in this game. I mean, this is 2,000 already right out the gate just to get these cookbooks. If you push square on them, you can actually see what they would allow you to make. And this is bone arrows, fletched regular bone bolts, glowstone, invigorating cured meat, invigorating white cured meat. And then for the missionaries cookbook, you get holy water pot, rope pot, and stuff like that. So these are really good stuff to have. You always want to generally buy these. Now, a tip about what I do.
You took my warning to heart. You've made an excellent choice.
All right, so we'll go to item crafting. If you have a crafting kit, you can make various items from materials that you find. Select item crafting from the menu to make the items. You can learn to craft more items by finding cookbooks. Okay. You will need cracked pots or other containers to craft certain items. You will not be able to make more of those items than you have containers. Container items will run out with use, but the containers themselves will remain. So, your cracked pots are consumable items that you will put into your quick slot menus here. Now, what they're saying is when you use them, so I'll just say generally like a fire pot, yes, you will run out of the fire aspect of the pot once you throw them, but the pot themselves will never go away. So you'll always be able to reuse them. It's just whatever you put inside of them, that's what's going to be gone forever. Just so you know. And what I do normally is if I know for a fact that I met a merchant, right, and I didn't buy all the stuff that I wanted from him, then I will go ahead and put a marker down like a person to kind of indicate that I need to come back to this guy in order to buy up whatever it was I need. Because there's going to be a lot of inventory items, and unless your memory is really good and you're deep in the game and you have 20 of these dudes laying around and you forgot what the hell you need to buy, I would just put a marker down and be like, okay, I didn't buy something very specific from him because it costed too much at the time or I didn't need it. So just a little thing there. And then you can see where the grace is kind of pointing to kind of guide yourself around the world. Erdleaf flower. Dusky yellow flower that's started to fade brown, found throughout the lands between. Material used for crafting items said to be fed by leaves that fell from the Erd tree in days of crafting kit.